Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's program. It's our new Lunch and Learn series with topics related to health, wellness, and hospital librarianship. Today we have Matt Roslund, medical librarian for the Bassett Medical Center, and we're so glad that you're able to join us today and look forward to future programs on this new series. Before we begin, we do have a few items I want to cover. I'm Christine Brown, Outreach Services Librarian for the South Central Regional Library Council. My pronouns are she, her. SCRLC is one of 9 multi-type library systems comprising the Empire State Library Network in New York State. And we cover 14 counties, 10,045 square miles, and we're headquartered in Ithaca, New York, part of Tompkins County. And so I'm got a land acknowledgement. As I said, we're headquartered in Ithaca, Tompkins County, which is on the unceded traditional lands of the Gayacahono people, one of the 6 nations of the Great Haudenosaunee Confederacy. During European encroachment, the Gayacahono gave refuge to the Tutelo and Saponi peoples. We invite you to consider the history of your land wherever you are. And we recognize that colonialism and oppression continue to create trauma for Indigenous people today, and that there are wide health disparities. For example, according to the Indian Health Service, those born today have a life expectancy of 5.5 years less than all other races in the United States, which is 12 to 13 years less than white Americans. And if you are especially interested in health equity for our Indigenous neighbors, please consider donating to one of the organizations focusing on health equity. For example, the National Indian Council on Aging, the National Congress of American Indians, and for medical librarianship, the ALA Spectrum Scholarship Program. And we will be posting some links in the chat. There are some additional items. If you have not found it already, closed captioning is available. It's at the bottom of the screen, and you can show them on your taskbar. Throughout the first presentation, you're welcome to type questions and comments in the chat feature. If you want everyone to see them, please make sure that you select the everyone option in the drop-down menu. The webinar today is being recorded, and it will be shared with all registrants along with information about how to request a certificate of attendance. And there will also be a link to the evaluation form. And we ask that you share SCRLC's code of conduct, which we'll be linking as well in the chat. The Cliff Notes version is be kind, be courteous, be respectful. And we also hope that you will be totally engaged in the program today. Before I jump into introducing Matt, I want to give you a little bit of information. I know for some of you it'll be refresher. For others, it'll be some new information. And this is about the Hospital Library Services Program, the HLSP program, as well as SCRLC benefits. So one of the big benefits of being an HLSP member is the grant program, which provides funding to support collection development, improve technology, and provide library services for all HLSP members. And also through the HLSP program, we provide free and discounted access to biomedical resources, including New England Journal of Medicine and selected Ovid e-journals. And we also provide document delivery services through DocLine and the EFTs, which is another benefit of the HLSP program. We have an HLSP newsletter that is issued quarterly, and if you are not receiving that, please let me know. We'll add you to the list of recipients. We also share other regional communications that are relevant to hospitals and medical librarianship. We provide continuing educational opportunities as well, including those offered by the Medical Library Association and the network of the National Library of Medicine. And if there's any of those that you're interested in, let us know, and we may be able to help you attend those. SCRLC also has a digitization program, which you might be interested in. And we also offer leadership opportunities, including serving on advisory council or committees. We have a member spotlight program. If you're interested in, you can look to see spotlights of other members, and we can also arrange for you to be a spotlight member. And if you have any questions or would like any additional information about anything that we have here, please let me know, and we will be happy to help you with that. So I did want to also give you a little bit of information on the Lunch and Learn. What we're doing, like I said, it's a new series that we're starting. Its focus is going to be on health, wellness, and hospital library topics. If there's any you're interested in, please let us know. And at the end, we might have a little bit of time, so you could share those with us today. And now I will introduce Matt. Matt Roslund is the medical librarian at the Mackenzie Medical Library, located in the Bassett Healthcare Center in Cooperstown. He has worked there since December of 2013. Prior to joining Bassett Healthcare, Matt worked as a librarian at the New York State Department of Health. He received his Bachelor of Arts in English Language and Literature from SUNY Buffalo and his MLIS from SUNY Albany. And now I will turn it over to Matt.
Thank you, Christine, and hello to everyone. So the title of this is, what does a medical librarian do? I'll kind of give a very quick introduction to how I got into this field. As Christine mentioned, I got my undergraduate degree in English. I thought I wanted to be an English professor. I thought better of that. I went to teach English in China for 2 years. When I got back, I didn't know what to do with myself. I actually saw an editorial in the newspaper from someone who had just gotten their master's in library and information science saying you can do anything with this degree. And I knew I was interested in computers and information and organization, and I thought that that's for me. And I thought I was going to work at Google or one of the other, growing tech companies at the time. So when I graduated, I had to get a job, and my first job was at the New York State Department of Health. And at this time, I said, I'm not going to be a librarian. I don't want to be a librarian. But within a year, I had realized, I really love this. I like talking to people. I like working in this field, and I found it interesting. So that was when I realized, okay, I will be a librarian, and I got the medical library bug. I also worked at SUNY Albany in their science library, so I got to experience a different kind of library. And then in 2013, I joined Bassett. And I'll just give a quick note about Bassett. It's a large hospital network of 5 hospitals, a bunch of clinics, specialty services, residential services. It's spread out over 8 counties. Where I am located is in Cooperstown at Bassett Medical Center. So we are kind of divided up into 3 functions, the way I think of it. We have a 180-bed inpatient facility and a clinic, so we've got the patient care side of things. We also do an education function. We have an affiliation with Columbia, and so we have Columbia Bassett program for medical students. We have internal medicine and surgery residency programs, also affiliated with Columbia. So I work with the education side of things. And then we also have a research function. So Bassett has its own research department that generally focuses on rural health. And on top of that, they have a department called NICAM, which is the New York Center for Agricultural Medicine and Health, or NEC. And that's where my wonderful colleague Deb works. So they have their own librarian, and she takes care of that side of things. And she works with the residents and things as well. So that's Bassett in a nutshell. And I think it's kind of unique to have a rural hospital that gets involved in all these things. And so that makes it an interesting place to work. So getting into what it is I do all day, one of the time-consuming things I do is interlibrary loan. So that's borrowing and lending materials, books, and articles, mostly articles, but now and then books. So we go through DocLine and OCLC, which are two systems that are available to institutions that have libraries. You have to be able to lend materials, not just borrow them. And so we're able to use our materials to lend to other libraries who want them. And then in return, I get to borrow articles from them. So that is interesting. It's time consuming. And sometimes, if somebody wants something from 1845 in some obscure medical journal, and it's just interesting to chase those things down. Another one of the things that I do is literature searching or mediated searching. So, physicians, nurses, students will come to me and say, I'm interested in this topic. I don't know what's out there, what's been published about it. And I will go out there and search the database for them. And, people have asked me, how do you do that if you're not in the medical field? And the answer is you become an expert in the databases. So my subject mastery is in the databases that those articles and things are stored in, not the medical field. So they, for example, PubMed is one way to search Medline, which is a huge database. And it has a lot of really advanced features. It has a controlled vocabulary called MESH, and there are all kinds of advanced techniques you can use to find articles that have been published on a certain topic, no matter what words the authors use, no matter how they describe them, we can find them, generally speaking, in Medline. So that is an interesting thing that I do, and that's another big part of my day. I think that this service is quite rare in the, say, public and academic world. Those librarians will say, here's the database, here's how to use it, go find your own articles. But in medical libraries, and Christine has mentioned to me in other special libraries like law libraries and so on, they'll do that. But you won't get that service in an academic library. But the thing is, our patrons are physicians and nurses and people who are busy trying to save lives. So that's why I am encouraged to do this, so that I can save them the time of banging their head against the table trying to find articles, so that they can do their important work, and I can generally save them time. So the searching often is research related. Every once in a while, it's patient care related, directly patient care related. A physician will say, I'm seeing this patient, they have this condition, I'm not really up on it. Can you find some recent articles for me? And people have asked, is that a little bit scary? And it is a little bit scary because it feels like a responsibility. I'm going to find information that may directly affect someone's health, not to overinflate my importance, but it's a part of it anyway. And I in library school and in some of the classes I've taken for medical librarians, they point out examples of people who have been involved in, say, drug research, who died when the researchers didn't go far back enough in the literature. There was one that happened at Johns Hopkins, maybe around 2000. And one of the volunteers died. And if they had looked back far enough, they would have seen this drug they were testing was known to have lung toxicity. So, I think of it, I don't know if you've heard of the Swiss cheese model of risk management, where you've got all these layers, right? Each layer represents something that is supposed to catch a risk, and they all have holes in them. They all have gaps. So I see, and so, the risk is coming this way, and maybe it gets through one of the holes, but it should hit another piece of cheese that stops the risk from becoming a problem. So I see my job as just one of the many slices of Swiss cheese that can prevent patient harm at our hospital. So, and that slice of Swiss cheese is called knowledge of library resources. So because we have a library, we have a budget, we have journal subscriptions, we have ebook subscriptions, we have book subscriptions, and it's not enough to have them. You have to have someone who knows how to use them, and that's my job. So I can explain this to the physicians or use those resources for them, but that's I think one of the really important parts of my job, and the part that I think is significant. And then along those lines, I also do bibliographic instruction. So there are people who want to use those resources themselves, and I'm very happy to explain them. So education is still a big part of what I do. I work with people all day. teaching them how to use the databases, how to effectively search for things, how to know whether or not we have a certain journal, and how to get it for free. There are people who, I don't know if you've ever looked for an article, but you go on the publisher's website, they want to charge you $60 to download a single article. I can get it for you for free, generally speaking, by borrowing it or by getting it from our own collection. So kind of education is a big part of it. Those are kind of the librarian functions. In my role, also, I do a lot of technology training. So I have gotten to the point where I'm pretty good at Excel, and I am the Excel trainer at Bassett. So I help people use Excel. We just started something called Excel Club, where I have made up these little challenges. And I've said, people, here's this data. Can you do this with it? Can you do that with it? And then once a month we meet and try to show people how you can solve those challenges. So that's something fun. I enjoy doing that. I do also help with research, so I will teach people also how to use bibliographic citation managers like Zotero or Mendeley or EndNote, which I think are magical. And when I show those to researchers and anyone who has to write papers, they lose their minds at how cool they are. They push a button and it makes your bibliography for you. So that's really a wonderful thing. And then, Deb and I also will help people with publications. Like, people have written an article, they want to know, where can I publish this? What journals should I go to? What journals should I avoid? That's also something that we can do for people. So on top of all that, the library where I work is now under the HR operations in the Human Resources department. So I also pitch in with HR functions once in a while. So that keeps me very busy in my role. So that's the nutshell, I think, of what I do. And knowing that some of the audience today is going to be liaisons. I know Robin is also a medical librarian, and so, but I know we've got a few people here who are liaisons. What's some advice? I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who's at an organization that doesn't have a library, but they're the library liaison. Maybe they are tasked with helping people to find information. The first thing I thought of to advise you about is that there's a lot of free information out there, but please beware, because not all of it is good. If you're not familiar with the concept of a predatory journal, it's very easy for anyone nowadays to make a journal. I could make one and call it Matt's Journal of Nephrology. And I don't know anything about nephrology, but I could start this journal and I could say, would you like to publish in my journal? Please pay me, $2,000 and I'll put it up for you. And the problem with that is I haven't done any peer review. I haven't done anything. You could have sent in a completely nonsense article. All I want is the money, and I put the article up for you. So you don't want to publish in those journals, and you don't want to send your patrons articles from those journals. You want reputable journals. And so be careful. So how do you know? This is something that Deb and I have worked on quite a bit. We recommend as one source a website called Think, Check, Submit. It's called thinkchecksubmit.org is the URL. This is really for people who are going to publish, but the first two steps, think and check, are very useful for anyone who's going to be sending an article to someone. So if you find an article that looks good, get used to doing those two steps and check that website, thinkchecksubmit.org. I think I put it on my list that maybe Christine is going to send out. So you can have a look at that just to make sure that you're sending good information. You will find things in PubMed Central, and just because something is in PubMed Central, that's a free repository of articles. And it's, again, quite easy to write a nonsense article and get that put into PubMed Central. They don't do the checking for you, so you have to be careful what you're sending to people. And then I know that through the South Central Regional Library Council, the HLSP program can help you with ILL. But if you didn't have access to them, you would have to either pay that money to the publisher directly and pay $60 to get an article, or go through the Copyright Clearance Center at copyright.org to get articles. And maybe Christine will have more to tell you about the services of the HLSP. But those were the tips that I had in mind for liaisons. Mainly, it's just be careful, because there's a lot of junk out there and you really want to beware. So,
Matt, I have a question.
Yeah, Deb.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that wonderful tool that you got, the PDNet Discover.
Yeah,
and I don't know how you got it and how expensive it is, but it's a wonderful resource. And maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
sure, sure. Yeah, we lost our library catalog. So our catalog was where you could find out what we have. So if somebody said, "Hey, do you have, the American Journal of Nursing?" I would go to the catalog, type in American Journal of Nursing and get it. That company that made our catalog went out of business. And so we had to find a replacement. And since most of our resources are electronic anyway, we decided to go with a discovery service, and that's what TDNet Discover is. So this serves that function, and you can find out what we have. But in addition to that, it's a discovery service. So you can type in an actual search. It'll go out and search many different sources, including Medline, including publisher sites, including so many things. And they tie in nicely with our subscriptions. So it's a bit expensive. It was about twice the cost of our catalog, but fortunately, my boss was able to advocate for us and get us that service. But it makes things easier for our patrons, certainly, as far as searching goes, because they can just type in a search and find out whether or not we have something without having to go through the slightly more complicated catalog system that we used to have. They just click a button, and if we have it, it gets them the article, and if we don't have it, it takes them to an interlibrary loan form. So it is very nice, and I would recommend it to anybody who has resources that they subscribe to. Is that what you had in mind, Deb? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Robin.
Yeah, so just to add on a little bit to that, because my institution also uses TDNet, it's also great in that it's very flexible with website design. So it offers a lot of different widgets that you can experiment with. It just offers a lot of options in terms of web design that you can set up. So like, for example, you could set up a carousel of just like journals that people can check out. There's just a lot of flexibility with it. So I'm not sure how expensive it is in terms of like other institutions, but I know my institution paid around $2,000 for it. If that gives you a ballpark of an idea.
Yeah, Mary Carol.
Yeah, we had a regional subscription to it for our member hospitals a number of years ago. And in the consortial environment, it didn't work as well. We paid somewhere between $45,000 and $5,000 for it. And because there were so many different IT departments, and we couldn't really get one thing to fit all. And so I think it's really good for individual libraries, and maybe it's something Christine wants to look back into for the future. But at that point in time, it just didn't lend itself well to having one TDNet instance for everybody and their practices.
Yeah, that seems like
which was disappointing. But things change, and TDNet, I'm sure, evolves like anything else. So maybe it could be worth another look.
Yeah, TDNet has evolved a lot because I was on the old version that Jean had, and that it was like what Mary Carol described, but then they did a lot of updates recently, and it actually looks very, very good. There's a lot more flexibility and features that they offer now. So yeah, but then again, I also just want to mention that it might have been cheaper for my institution because so I'm Lourdes Hospital, but I'm underneath Ascension, and there are multiple libraries underneath Ascension. So since so many people signed up for it, we may have just gotten a lower cost because of that.
Yeah, I mean, if we went back into it, maybe the thing would be to negotiate better prices for our members and get a better group rate or something. Matt, I also have a PubMed question, because I, for one, associate PubMed with Medline, and therefore, if it's PubMed, woohoo, we found something good. But you're saying that PubMed Central, you still have to be really careful. So what is the difference between PubMed Central and like Medline or PubMed? What am I mixing up?
It's a good question, and it's one that comes up a lot. I used to have a really nice a Venn diagram, and I think I lost it. But PubMed is the big circle. PubMed includes Medline, So Medline is like a big circle inside of Medline, but PubMed also includes other things. And Medline is a pretty good and reliable source. If you find something that's in Medline, they do some vetting. They choose which journals go into Medline, they being the National Library of Medicine. But PubMed also includes what's in PubMed Central. And PubMed Central is a repository of free articles. And many of them are in there because of grant requirements. So if you get any funding from the NIH, you are required within a year to put that research into PubMed Central. But that's not the only way things get into PubMed Central. There are backdoor ways to kind of slip things in. And so that's, you will find some junk in PubMed Central. Now, there is a way to restrict your search in PubMed to Medline. And I think boy, I'm going to have to, I don't do it that often because I'm just kind of used to doing it my own way. There is a little tag you can add. I'm just going to quickly do a search here and see if I can find it. It's going to be Medline and then a little tag, which is called SH. No, it's not SH. SB. So do your search and then add Medline and then in brackets SB. SB is I don't know what SB means. I'm going to put this into the chat. So if people want to try this, that will take out everything from your search results that's not in Medline. Where's the chat? Here it is. So you would do your search, blah, 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 and then do and Medline SB. That would get you good, you'd also potentially, the problem is you'd also potentially be losing other good results that were in PubMed Central. So it's like, it's a tricky game.
You know, one other way to search for Medline is through our First Search subscription. And all of our hospitals, whether you have a librarian or you're a liaison, all of the hospitals are part of our First Search subscription. And First Search is an umbrella of resources that includes WorldCat, but it also includes Medline because it's basically free kind of taxpayer supported, but free resources. And so it's another way. And if you're familiar with searching through First Search, it's a pretty good platform, but it's just Medline.
That's really good. I didn't know that. That's good info.
Probably I should do an article about that. You know, what else is in First Search?
Does anyone else have any other questions for Matt?
Well, I'll ask one, and that is, Matt, what has surprised you about being a medical librarian that maybe you didn't anticipate?
Well, one is how open medical professionals are to admitting that they don't know things. That surprised me at first because I expected, I had the same idea we tend to have is that, oh, they know everything. They went to medical school. They went to medical school maybe 10, 15 years ago. They don't have time to keep up with the research. And I was surprised for someone to say, hey, I'm a surgeon. I'm going to do this surgery. I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing. And I said, wow. Okay. So that was a surprise. The openness, because there's a kind of a stereotype, especially of surgeons, that they have this kind of complex that they're superhuman. I think another one is, and this comes up when I'm working with younger people, we have another idea that younger people are really good with computers, and that's not always the case. I work with some of the students and some of the residents who need more help with some of the computer functions that I'm sometimes a little bit surprised by that. But it makes sense. I mean, people are on their phone. They don't maybe learn. in school how to use, say, Excel, or how to do a Google search. It comes up a lot. I'll do like a Google Scholar search, and I'll put something in quotes, and I was like, why are you putting that in quotes? Like, well, it's a phrase, and you're searching the phrase, and things like that. That I'm like, oh, right, not everybody knows this. I've been in this field long enough. I sometimes forget what's common knowledge and what's not.
Yeah, I was a medical librarian for 4 years at UHS, actually. And when I first got there, I too was shocked. I thought doctors carried everything around in their heads. And so that was a shock that they actually didn't, and they needed information.
Yeah, it's job security for sure.
Yeah, one would hope. And yet that begs the question. So I'm not subscribed to the MedLib discussion list, but I know several years ago, Jean had mentioned how many hospital libraries were closing. And to me, that's really, as a patient, that's a really scary thought. Like you said earlier, in the Swiss cheese analogy, that hospital information is key to the right decision making. And there was the study on the value, there have been a couple of studies on the value of health sciences medical libraries. And it does point to the importance in patient care decision making.
Yeah, it's true. I think maybe around 2000, the Joint Commission is one of the bodies that accredits hospitals. And it used to be that in order to be accredited, your hospital to be accredited by the Joint Commission, you had to have a medical librarian on staff and a medical library. And I think it was around 2000 thereabouts that they removed that requirement. And a lot of hospitals said, oh, here's a chance for us to save money by firing our librarian and getting rid of our library, because the library doesn't bring in money, we cost money. But the idea is that we bring value in other ways down the line, in ways that are a little bit harder to quantify. So I when I was just getting started, I was on the MedLib, which is a listserv for librarians, medical librarians, hospital librarians, and seeing our hospital library is closing, our hospital library is closing, our hospital library is closing. And it's scary. And I do, if I take my own self-interest and bias out of it, I do think it's a very valuable thing for patients to be at a hospital that has a library and a librarian, and whose physicians and surgeons are open and know about the library and its resources and its services.
And that's one thing that Christine can do too. If you are at a hospital without a librarian and you're running into a glitch, you're not sure where to go or what the next step is in finding information, Christine is basically your backup circuit librarian.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, and I think too, if you need like a second opinion, the one thing about working at UHS at the time, we had something like 4 librarians. And if I ran into I don't know if I'm searching this quite right, or is there another way to think about this search? It's always good to have somebody to ask. And along with the confidentiality and all of that has to be weighed in. Sorry, Christine.
No problem. No, that's good. I think that is a good point. Yes, I'm happy to help out anybody. If you have any questions, I'll help you search. I can search for you. I can also help you to better hone your searches, so you can are more successful in your searching. I wanted to touch back on something Matt said was, the value of a hospital librarian. I talk with, friends and family and people about, hospital libraries and my function in that field. And almost everyone will say, oh, I didn't know that hospitals would have a library, but it makes a lot of sense. And I think that's a great thing. So, the public can understand the need for it as well.
Yeah, it's great that that you do offer that service, Christine. Do you get a lot of takers for that service?
Not a lot. Occasionally I do. I do try, when I meet with the liaisons, I do, let them know that is a feature I can provide as well. Mm-hmm. I have had Monica's asked me some things as well. So
nice.
Yes. Monica's getting good at doing searches. So
it gets easier every day.
yeah, the more you do it, the more you find little ways of doing things, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, here. But yeah, we're happy to help you with any questions you have.
I'll throw in another plug for South Central, which is that a lot of the time I'm made aware of the courses. There are so many courses being offered, and because these databases change and because technology changes and so on, it's a constant, it's like a lifelong learning thing. You have to keep learning to keep up on it. And fortunately, there are a lot of organizations, Medical Library Association and others, that put on webinars and things. And I often find out about these things first from the emails I get from South Central. And it's even happened once or twice that I've gotten some funding. Like, often they're free, but sometimes they're not. It's happened once or twice I've gotten some funding from South Central to attend them. And that's how I keep up my knowledge, and that's how I think I retain my value to my organization, is by keeping up my knowledge and staying up to date with these things.
Yeah, we do have a pot of money within the Hospital Library Services Program for CE. And sometimes that looks like, okay, we're going to sponsor an MLA downlink that everybody can attend. We sometimes share with the other ESLN councils. Empire State Library Network, we're one of 9. And they all have HLSP programs. So sometimes we go in with them. But then sometimes there may be things that you come across that you want to attend. Maybe it's $150. It's an MLA program and you're the only one wanting to attendance. So we'll give you $150 to go learn there, as long as there's funding available, which usually there is.
Yeah, if you do see any program like that you're interested in, let us know, and I'll continue sharing when I find out about programs that I think might be of interest. I'll share those out with the liaisons and librarians.
Just another note that I suspect if you asked Robin or Deb to give this talk, they would give a completely different talk. And for the people who maybe watch this recording, this wasn't meant to be something that encompasses every medical library. And I think everyone does different things in their organization. But we all bring value in our own ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you've covered the big things that most medical librarians do, at least some of them. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I know Jean, for example, Jean Jenkins, who's now retired, was really big in the IRB. For her research department, she got involved with like the nurses in their magnet programs. So, and they're at large hospitals or large health systems where you have a whole team of librarians. The librarians will go on rounds with the physicians. That's something that interests me, but I don't have time, but if you have a whole team of librarians, they'll send one out on rounds with the physicians. They'll be there with their notebook and take note of the things that they might want to look up later. That's a really nice thing that some hospital librarians do. Yeah. If we could hire maybe 5 or 6 more librarians at Bassett, I think, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, well, it's great that they have you, and it's kind of a model for some of the other hospitals that have, gotten rid of it. I mean, it's sad to see. I've seen it, at hospitals being cut. So good that it's still there. And we do have ways of helping those that work at a hospital that don't have all of those services. Do we have any other questions for Matt? So something I was looking at, and I mentioned early in the introduction, like I said, this Lunch and Learn program is something new we're working on. We're focusing on health, wellness, and hospital libraries and topics related to those. So if there's anything that you would like to see or hear more about, please let me know. If you want to share some now, and we could discuss it a little bit, but I want to make this relevant to what can help you the best. So let me know, and we could talk about it a little bit here right now. Something Mary Carol and I mentioned 2 or 3 months ago as a possible topic. So we're just, COVID is still here, but it's, we've moved beyond the emergency phase of it. And a lot of people are experiencing long COVID, and it turns out that there's other long illnesses. So I don't know, is this something people think they might want to maybe have a presentation on and learn a little bit more about, and how that impacts, health, wellness, and if there's anything maybe medical libraries could do? Any thoughts on that topic?
It sounds very interesting to me.
Okay.
Somehow I ended up with a subscription on my personal email account to Medscape. And I saw something over the weekend on hydrogels. I had no idea what a hydrogel was. And it's apparently, it was hydrogels, how they'll change healthcare. And I had never heard of them. And so I don't know whether anybody else would be interested in that, but they're apparently very little things encased in water that can maybe mitigate some very serious conditions that normally you would have to operate on, and so avoid surgery. And let's see how they'll change healthcare. The weird world of hydrogels, how they'll change healthcare. Imagine a day when a simple injection prompts a broken bone to heal, when tiny ingestible devices linger in the body unnoticed, tracking our health or delivering life-saving medications, when brain and heart implants mesh with flesh so seamlessly that the body thinks they've been there all along. These are the dreams of materials scientists who have toiled for decades to mimic the complex architecture of the human body in hopes of replacing broken parts or treating disease. The problem, say bioengineers, is that most replacement and corrective parts, from prosthetics to pacemakers, are made of hard, dry, lifeless materials like metal or plastic, while biological tissue is soft, wet, and living. So that's where the article was going, but I'd never heard of hydrogels and was unaware of this technology that was being investigated.
I didn't know anything about it before now, so that sounds interesting.
Maybe an aspirational lunch and learn.
Yeah.
That does sound interesting. One thing I just thought of is, I don't know if we could get someone to speak on it, but the role of AI in our field. I don't know if anyone has tried this. I've heard, AI is going to take your job. So I spoke to ChatGPT. I said, here's the search I have to do. Could you do it for me? It said, absolutely. And it brought back some information. I said, do you have some references where you got this information? It said, yes, of course. Here are 5. I looked them up and they were all bogus. They looked perfect. They looked exactly like real citations. And when I went to the journal, it wasn't there. So, and I've heard from people on MedLib Bell, the listserv, that this is something that their patrons are sending them. So their patrons are putting in interlibrary loan requests for bogus articles that they got from ChatGPT. The librarians are looking for them and not finding them. But, you know, AI in that sense, also in how it's going to change medicine. We've been hearing that now your doctor is going to talk to AI before he gives you your diagnosis. I think that could be interesting too.
Yikes. At least for now.
Yeah, no, I think that is a good one. I've been reading a little bit about it here and there, and yeah, it's definitely going to change things. But wow, that's amazing that all of the research it gave you was bad. So that's definitely a good topic to share with. Any other thoughts on topics we could pursue? Something you might be interested in hearing about or learning a little more about? One thing I did want to mention, and the Central Learning Resource Council is holding a virtual conference on health literacy. I had sent or shared that with the listserv, and also wanted to touch on it today. It's virtual. You can jump in on any different topic, but you might want to consider that. It's tomorrow and through Friday morning. So if it is something you're interested, email me and I can send you the link again. But there are some interesting topics coming up on that. I think I've got something here on that as well. Oh yeah, here it is. So they've got health literacy and postpartum education. They've got graphicmedicine.org, maternal mortality and doulas, and there's a book talk and a couple other things. So if it is something you're interested in, let me know and I can send you the link. Oh, there's no cost to it as well. So, okay, any other questions for Matt? Any other topics you're interested in?
I just had another thought. I'm brainstorming here. What about telehealth?
Okay.
I know that, you know, when Mary Carol, we were doing the Mary Carol was doing the telehealth project. I know we did a lot of research. We probably heard some people. There's probably some learning that could be shared on that topic. I think that might be interesting to people. And, you know, maybe people don't even know all the possibilities that are available now, even for people in rural areas.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good one. I have been, SCRLC did purchase 19 telehealth kits and shared them with the libraries throughout our throughout our district. And so I've been sharing that information out, but some information about how that works, that would probably be another good topic as well. So any other thoughts, questions, comments about topics or any questions you might have for Matt? Okay, seeing none, I think we'll end today. I appreciate all of you being here. If you do think of any, topics you're interested in, send me an email or give me a call. I'd be happy to talk about it and look at adding it to our topics. I am going to pop the link to our
I'm gonna log off,
evaluation.
but I wanted to say thank you, Matt. I really enjoyed it. And thanks, Christine. Bye.
Thanks, Nita. Actually, I will share the link to the. Oh, yes. Okay. Everyone's gone. It's just the three of us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate you being here. I think you did great.
It was
You
fun.
gave a good overview of what it is that you do. And we'll be sharing it with all the people who weren't able to attend.
Thank you, Matt, and see you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.